Alright everybody, so here is notes on Unit 4. We're doing quadratic formula and we're on page 11. So let's start this off with writing our formula down. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is set equal to 0, so we're good to go with that. We're going to say a equals 1 and b equals negative 2 and c equals 3. Alright, let's plug into our formula. So x equals, it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3 all over 2 times 1. So this turns into positive, so x equals 2 plus or minus. Now if you need to, we can use our calculator, and so let's see, parentheses, negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. So that's going to be negative 8. That means we're going to have a negative number under our square root. So if we have a negative number under our square root, you're going to have an I in your answer, like we did in Unit 3. So remember, when we have this, we cross out the negative and we put an I in our answer. Now, when we broke down the square root of 8 back in Unit 3, we did 2 and 4 and then 2 and 2, and we're doing groups of 2. So we take out a 2 and then we have a 2 underneath. So this is 2 plus or minus 2i root 2 all over 2. That's a whole lot of 2's there. So this is going to have two answers. 2 plus 2i root 2 all over 2. And then the other answer will be 2 minus 2i root 2 all over 2. Now, some of you are probably thinking, I really want to cancel out some of those 2's. Can I do that? And you can. You're allowed to divide this out between these two and divide it out between these two. But you can't do the 2 under the radical divided by this 2, because that is stuck under the radical and we're not allowed to do operations with that. So 2 divided by 2 is 1 plus 2 divided by 2, 1i root 2. That's the simplified answer for that one. And then over here, same thing, 1 minus 1i root 2. That's completely simplified. Okay, and those are your solutions. So since you have an I in your answer, this is going to be a parabola that's not going to touch the x-axis at all. It's going to have some space. It won't dip down far enough to have x-intercepts. That's what these I's are telling you. Non-real numbers means no x-intercepts. Let's do the second one over here. A equals 3, B equals negative 6, and C equals 7. Okay, I forgot to check to see if it was set equal to 0. Oh, it is. Okay, we're good to go. So using the formula from over here, x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 7. I think I'll be using my calculator to help me out with that in a couple minutes. This is all over 2 times 3. Okay, keep simplifying. So negative turns positive, plus or minus. Alright, let's see what we end up with. So this is going to be negative 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times 7, which is negative 48. Okay, so all over 6. So since this has a negative sign underneath, you're going to cross this out. You're going to put an I in your answer. So it'll be 6 plus or minus, and there will be a little I in there somewhere. When you break down the square root of 48, like we did in Unit 3, it's going to be 4 root 3. So it'll be 4I root 3. This is old information from Unit 3. And then all over 6. So one answer will be x equals 6 plus 4I root 3 all over 6. The other answer will be 6 minus 4I root 3 all over 6. And we could definitely reduce that as well. 6 divided by 6 is 1 plus. Now 4 divided by 6 doesn't really divide out really nicely, but you can put it in lowest terms. So it would be 2 over 3I root 3. And then over here it'll be 1 minus 2 over 3I root 3. So those are your completely simplified answers. If you have questions about how we did this, please feel free to ask me anytime. Alright, the last 3 examples on the bottom here are solving quadratic equations. So you're trying to get the x by itself. We aren't doing quadratic formula for these. We're just solving, trying to get x by itself. So what you want to do is get the x by itself. First you want to subtract 9. Subtract 9 from both sides. You're left with x minus 4 squared equals negative 4. Then from there, to get rid of this little squared right here, you're going to square root both sides. And you're going to square root this side. So this is going to go, and this is x minus 4. Now this is a negative under the square root. So it's going to have an I in your answer, and the square root of 4 is 2. Now here's the catch. When you solve these equations and you take square roots, you need to put a plus or minus in front of your square root answer. It's sort of like when you were to do, I'll put a little example over here. If you were to do the square root of 25, really the square root of 25 is positive 5, but it could also be negative 5. You have a positive answer and a negative answer, because negative 5 squared is also 25. So we haven't had to worry about positives and negatives until we've come to these equations. So just remember, put the plus or minus in front of your square root answer and you'll be fine. So now we still have to get the x by itself. So you're going to add 4. So we're going to add 4 over here. X equals, now this 4 can't combine with that 2 because it doesn't have an I behind it. So you're going to just write it like this. So 4 plus or minus 2I. And so now you've got your solutions. One solution is 4 plus 2I. The other solution is 4 minus 2I. Okay? So really the only thing new is just remembering to put that plus or minus in front of your square root answer. Let's try this one. To get the x by itself, the first thing you want to do is add 3. So we add 3 to both sides. X plus 3 quantity squared equals 15. Now you're going to take the square root of both sides because we have to get rid of this squared right here. So we're going to take the square root and we're going to take the square root of that side. Goes away. Bring down the x plus 3. And then the square root of 15, you can try to break it down, but I think all we get out of that is 5 and 3. So we can't get any groups of 2 out of 15. So that's just going to stay put the way it is. Just remember, put the plus or minus in front of it. Okay? So now you need to get the x by itself. Subtract 3 from both sides. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 15. One answer is negative 3 plus square root of 15. The other answer is negative 3 minus the square root of 15. Doesn't matter if you put the negative 3 in the front or in the back. No, it doesn't matter really. The commutative property says you can put it in the front or the back. On a standardized test, you're going to see it written this way. So that's why I'm always writing my answers with the radical in the back. Alright, so last example, and then you're going to try exercises on page 12 and 13. Okay, so let's add 25 to both sides. So x squared equals 75. Excuse me. Now you're going to take the square root of both sides. So take the square root of this and take the square root of this. This goes away. You've got x. And then 75, we can break down 75. So let's see, 75 is 25 and 3. And 5 and 5. So 5 root 3. And then it's a square root, so we're going to put a plus or minus in front of our answer. So one answer is going to be positive 5 root 3. The other answer will be negative 5 root 3. Okay, so that wraps up notes on quadratic formula and solving quadratic equations. Try the exercises on page 12 and 13, and don't hesitate to ask me lots of questions. Thanks a lot.